Welcome to a very special edition of Kids in the Kitchen and Manners Make Magic.
Hi, I'm Morgan, and welcome to Manners Make Magic.
And I'm Kenny. We're at the home of Dr. Daryl and Terry Mozena, who are hosting a charity dinner for Findlay Hospital's diabetic unit. Thanks for having us here.
I'm glad to have you, Kenny, and you too, Morgan.
Wow, this arrangement is very fancy. The fanciest we get at our house is normally getting out the Scooby-Doo plates and putting on the pork chops.
Wow, this is a magnificent place setting. How'd you acquire it?
Well, Morgan, I did not grow up having dining tables set like this myself, but from the time I was really a young child, I always thought glassware and silver and china was beautiful, and I loved it. And as I grew up and I learned about different things, I got married, my husband and I went to auctions, and we would buy dishes and buy pretty things and put them together and use them and love them and share them with people.
So for you, it's kind of like a hobby?
It's a hobby, and it's also has become somewhat of a lifestyle too.
I know your glasses don't match, but they seem to fit together perfectly.
Well, thank you. I do have a method behind my madness. Because I like all the different types of glasses, I find it more interesting to mix my glasses for the different types of wines or water that I'm going to be using. It's just more fun, and it looks pretty on the table.
It does.
I see tonight you're starting with the charger plate.
That's correct. Tonight I will be using the charger plate, and all basic rules that we've learned up to this point are all in effect. Our silverware is in its proper place, forks to the left, knife and spoon to the right. Our butter plate is up on the left-hand side with the butter knife, napkin to the left. Tonight, in addition to that, I'm going to be serving several extra courses, so there will be extra silverware and extra china that will be used.
So would you mind showing us some of that china?
No, I'd be happy to. Behind us on the buffet, I have laid out all the different dishes that I'm going to be using for my courses tonight, but this afternoon I'll take them all to the kitchen because I do not want my guests to see these dishes before they arrive. When they walk in the room, they'll only see the dishes that are on the table.
So I love this punch bowl. Are you going to be serving punch tonight?
No, actually the punch bowl is just a centerpiece on the buffet, but I did actually paint the punch bowl and 14 punch cups.
Whoa.
They look really nice.
Porcelain painting is a very old technique that was done hundreds of years ago before people could apply different types of paintings and styles to china. I start with a ground glass and pigment mixture that I mix with oil, and I paint just like I'm painting a watercolor or an oil painting. But then it goes into an oven and is fired at 13 to 1500 degrees. So it's very hot, and the porcelain opens up and absorbs the paint. But in the process, it burns a lot of the color off. So I have had to fire and paint each one of these pieces like 5 or 6 times a piece. And in addition to that, I've added 24 karat gold paint to the handles and rims, and that is an additional painting also.
Wow, and I think homework takes up a lot of time.
So what sequence are you going to be serving food tonight?
Well, I'm going to be starting with a traditional, what is called a fish course. But if you go to any restaurant in town, you'll always see a selection of appetizers on the menu. But in a formal place setting like this, it's called the fish course. This is going to be my first course, the fish course. It's going to be served in these little hot glass crab ramekins. It's going to be a lobster in a light creamy sauce, and it's going to be served with a little seafood fork. And this is a antique crab dish. It's a very heavy piece of glass that you can actually put in the oven and bake.
So what's the next course?
The next course is going to be a soup course, and I'm serving a squash soup tonight.
So what's with the lid?
Well, this little cup and lid is actually called a pot de crème, which means pot of cream. And it actually is used many times for dessert because when you make a custard, you don't want that thick skin to form on top. So when it's hot and steamy and put in here and the lid is put on, it doesn't form that thick layer. But tonight I'm using a dessert cup to put my soup in because, again, it's a chilly night and I want my guests to have their soup really hot.
So there's other ways to use dishes besides their purpose?
Exactly, and that's why I enjoy cooking and entertaining so much, because you can really be creative.
I know what the next course is, salad.
That's correct, and this is going to be the salad dish. I chose a dish tonight, not just a round traditional dish, but something that had a little bit of color. It has a little bit more interesting shape, and it's a dish that I really like, but I don't get to use very much. So tonight, it's going to be my salad dish.
That's nice. So after the salad comes the main course?
Not exactly.
Well, not exactly tonight, because tonight is a special dinner and we're trying to make it be as fancy and special as we can for our guests. So I'm going to be serving a sorbet course, or a palate cleanser. This is a course that is served between the salad and the entree, and it's simply meant to kind of cleanse the palate, to refresh it, and to get it ready for the entree.
Now the main course?
Yes, now the main course. The main course will be served. The charger plate will be taken away when the sorbet course is finished. And then in the kitchen, I'll be preparing the entree. And that will be brought in, and it will be served on the left and taken away on the right when the guests are finished. And this tonight I've chosen kind of a fancy, brightly colored plate just because the table I have kept kind of simple. So I want some of my dishes to jump out and be kind of special and noticed.
After a very lovely dinner, what's for dessert?
Well, I'm always careful when I do a very fancy dinner because I do not want to overwhelm my guests with a very heavy dessert. So what I've chosen tonight is a triple berry dessert that the berries have been soaked in a liqueur. And with that, I've made a homemade vanilla bean vanilla sauce. And for the utensil, I've chosen a spork. And a spork, I think you have seen it before. It has the tines to pick up the berries, but if people choose to have the vanilla sauce, it also has a bowl so that they can get every last bite and every last calorie.
So this looks like one of your beautiful handcrafted plates again.
Yes, it is. I try to use my plates when I entertain because I like to share them with people. It's a combination of sharing my love of painting with my love of china.
So we've had dessert. What's next? Cigars and brandy?
Not for you, Kenny, but tonight we will finish the meal with the cheese course.
Cheese?
Yes, it's a very traditional thing in Europe to finish a large meal with a selection of fine cheeses. And tonight we'll do the same thing. We'll pass a platter of different types of cheeses at room temperature with maybe a bunch of grapes and some celery. And then people can choose what type of cheese they want, or they don't have to choose any if they don't want any.
So how long does it take you to plan everything?
Well, it does take me quite a bit of time, but it's time that I love to spend doing that. I will go through lots of cookbooks, but I can't just pick things that I think, oh, they sound good. I also have to keep in mind what's the color on my plate. I can't have everything be green, or I can't have everything be white. So I'm picking, gee, my plate is looking kind of blah. Maybe I need a tomato for color. I need to come up with a tomato recipe now to give it a pop. Everything I do somehow it has to coordinate. It's just like a wardrobe. You're putting together foods. Some things are savory, some are sweet, some are sour. You don't want everything sweet. So you have to try to balance out constantly your salad. You don't want a sweet salad, and then you don't want a sweet sauce on your meat, and then a sweet dessert. That would be too much. Yep. So everything is some of it's experience, some of it's common sense, and some of it is just being playful and experimenting with new ideas.
What about these lovely roses?
Well, the roses, again, it was a little prior planning. I never run out the day I'm going to have a party and go, oh, I want to put roses on the table. 3 3 days ago I bought roses because I want my roses to be open and full and everything look like it's totally fresh and it's at its peak of perfection when people sit down to the table. Because tonight when people come and sit, before they ever taste my food, they are going to have a feast for their eyes before they actually feast on the food. And that's kind of my theory on how to feed people.
That makes a lot of sense.
What are you going to serve in each of these glasses?
Well, this is a typical champagne glass, and the first couple courses will be accompanied with a champagne. This is because I'm serving beef tonight, I've chosen a red wine, so this is going to be used for a red wine. And this is a silver goblet, which I thought was kind of fun mixing it with the gold. And this is the water glass, and I like it in the silver because it keeps the water very cold and refreshing throughout the meal.
This looks like it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but it's for the right reason. It's sharing your collection with somebody else, which is always fun to do. And with anything in life, if you want to really get into it, really enjoy it, really understand it, it takes a lot of work, no matter what it is you're doing, even if you're simply cooking a meal. But it doesn't always have to be this fancy. Basically, what you're wanting to do is you're giving something of yourself and you're willing to share it with somebody else.
What do you do about people with special dietary requirements? How do you deal with that?
That's a really good question. Tonight is an unusual situation in that I do not really know a few of the people who are coming to dine. So what I have done is I've contacted the people who are hosting the dinner, who actually purchased the dinner at the auction, and asked them to ask their guests if they had any special requirements that were needing to be addressed. And if I am normally just inviting someone for dinner, I always ask if anybody has any allergies or if there are any particular things that they don't like.
What if you really love cheese?
Well, I have some really good news for you, Kenny. Almost any gourmet in any restaurant or at any fine table, there will always be cheese.
Well, it's evening now and we're waiting for the guests to arrive. Terry, is everything in place?
I think everything is ready to go. If you do really good planning, I even had time to put my feet up for an hour before the guests are due to arrive.
Well, everything seems to be in order from this afternoon, except for the roses that have opened more, which, by the way, look beautiful, and the candles I've lit.
That's right. The only thing left to do is to light additional candles by each of the place settings, but I'm going to wait until the guests are ready to be seated to do that.
So, Terry, what can I do to help?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. Even though everything looks beautiful, the real work is going to be in the kitchen tonight. So tonight, Manners Make Magic is going to meet Kid in the Kitchen.
Well, we're in Terry's kitchen, and this is the staging area for what she's going to put on the dining room table. I see you put notes on your dishes. Why?
Well, because I'm going to be kind of busy tonight in the kitchen and things happen kind of fast. So what I do, I like to be really organized. I make a list of all my courses, and I also bring my dishes out and I label each dish what it's going to be used for. And if someone's helping me, I can say, would you please go get the fish dishes? And they'll be able to look and see which dishes I need. So it's all about organization and timing in the kitchen when you're preparing a large meal like this.
So, Terry, where do we start?
Well, in a few minutes, I'm going to start my fish course, which is going to be a lobster, which I have kind of chilling down to room temperature, and it's drained so that it's not going to be wet and soggy when I go to saute it. I've already chopped my shallots, and I've chopped some fresh ginger and fresh garlic, and I have fresh cilantro, and I'll be putting just a touch of curry powder in that tonight to kind of give it a little bit of an unusual and a little bit of an Eastern flavor.
Curry, isn't that an Indian spice?
That's right, it is, and it's a spice that we're using more and more in our foods today.
Ooh, I love asparagus, but this looks like a work of art.
Well, thank you. It's just really a fresh asparagus, and for the night, I've decided to slide it through a lemon rind just to give it a little bit of extra color and to make it look pretty. And before I present it on the plate, I'll be putting some butter and some lemon and salt and pepper on it.
I've never seen tomatoes stuffed with, what is that?
Well, you know what? I've never seen them either. This is going to be an experiment tonight. Sometimes I like to make up my own recipes. So when I saw these little tomatoes at the store, I thought they'd look awfully cute on a plate tonight. So I bought them, cleaned them, cut the tops off, scooped the tomato out. Then I've made kind of like a stuffing, a cooked stuffing. And I put it back in the tomato, sprinkled cheese on it, put the lid back on, and then I'm going to bake them in the oven for about 30 minutes before I serve them with my entree.
And this looks like phyllo dough. And that wrap, something tell me about that.
Yes, it is phyllo dough, which is a Greek pastry. It's a very fine dough that you buy at the store. It's frozen, and you thaw it out, and you very carefully have to peel the sheets apart because it's paper thin. Brush it with butter, and then I've made a combination of 3 different types of mushrooms, and these are called mushroom envelopes. And so tonight we'll be using morel mushrooms, shiitake mushrooms, and baby portobello mushrooms. So it'll be like a crunchy bread almost, which is what the phyllo becomes, with a soft center of mixture of really tasty mushrooms.
I'm not a big mushroom fan, but this sounds yummy.
Well, someday you may even think it tastes yummy.
So Terry, since this is a big dinner party, you need some help. Please introduce me.
I will be glad to do that. This is my neighbor and good friend and sous chef for the evening, Mr. Fran Henkels.
Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you.
He's come prepared to help do anything that I would require, and he's also brought with him his own trusty thermometer.
Always need that.
What are you doing?
Well, right now I'm sauteing the shallots. I pushed my lobster to one side of the pan and it's not over the heat. I'm trying to get it just the onion or the shallot gently cooked. Then I'm going to add garlic and ginger. You don't add it all at once because the ginger and garlic you don't want to cook as long as you do the onion. And now I'm going to saute that a little bit. Can you smell it?
It smells good.
Could my sous chef get the half and half out of the refrigerator, please?
You betcha.
And this is the curry powder.
So
Not
are
too
these
much.
like little is this like chopped up lobster meat?
Yes, those are lobster tails. I had
Oh.
5 lobster tails, and I just chopped the meat up because I'm not trying to serve huge portions. This is the fish course. This is like an appetizer,
Yeah.
so I don't want people to get too full eating that.
Yeah.
So see, now I've added the curry. See how that's turning yellow?
Yeah.
Then I'm going to start stirring in the lobster. Not too much curry. I just add enough curry to add a
Smells
little
good.
color.
I don't use curry a lot. What is curry?
Curry is a
from?
mixture of several spices from India, and the main spice you see in there that turns the color yellow is turmeric. That's where the yellow color in curry comes from. But actually, in India, every woman makes her own curry. She blends her own spices because every family's taste is a little bit different. So they don't have, they never go to the store and buy a jar of curry like we do. They grind their own spices on maybe a weekly basis, and that's their blend for their family, and that's what their family likes.
So now we're putting in what? A little sea
Little
salt,
sea salt.
which is a little gentler than most salt.
It's a little gentler, doesn't taste quite as salty. And I'm still letting everything, and you can see the lobster is still a little translucent, so I know it's not quite finished yet. And then I'm also going to add some, this is another Indian, used a lot in Indian and Mexican cooking, cilantro. And it looks like parsley, but it has a totally different flavor. And then as soon as this is finished, in a few more minutes, I'm going to add the cream, and that will pull everything together and it'll make a nice little sauce.
So does this adding the cream?
The cilantro?
Is that going back to adding color to the place?
It's adding color, but it's also adding the flavor. You kind of get both. But I don't want to make this, and I'm not cooking Indian tonight, so I want the complexity of that little bit of curry in the sauce, but I don't want people to taste it and say, oh, is this an Indian dish? Because if I was making an Indian dish, I would be adding a lot more curry. This is just to give it a little bit of extra flavor. And now I'll add some cream. And we'll let that cook down. See, we don't want to cook the lobster too long because lobster will turn into little rubber balls if you cook it too long. So we want it to be pretty tender. Now I'm going to let the sauce cook a little. And could I please have a teaspoon or two for testing? And then when you test things, you always use a spoon so that you don't contaminate the pot. So I'm just going to see if there's enough salt in there right now. Just, you can taste it if you want.
Good.
Where do you go to get these spices? Can you get them here in Dubuque?
You can get some spices in Dubuque. Sometimes we go to a place called Penzies in Madison and we get some spices there. And they strictly import spices from all over the world. Or we can also order them through the mail. And you can go into Chicago and go like into the Indian supermarkets and you can find a wonderful world of spices there.
But I think most of them you can find here in Dubuque, can't you?
Most of the spices you can find here in Dubuque. And actually, Hy-Vee is carrying lots of wonderful fresh spices today. Years ago, you couldn't have found a lot of these things. Today, you actually can. You want to put a leaf? Just lay a big one on.
Terry had gotten the dishes hot so that, real hot, anyway, so that when she serves her lobster, the lobster will stay hot. Lobster, like most fish, will dissipate heat pretty quickly. So if you heat the plate you're putting it on, obviously it'll stay hot longer.
Shouldn't you warn your guests if you're serving a hot plate?
I always would. Just so that they don't grab it. But actually, by the time we put this on the table, most of that heat will dissipate and it will go into the meat. So, to the ingredient that's in the dish. But yeah, you should always. You never want your guests to be hurt, upset, offended. So you should always tell them everything that's going on.
Okay. Morgan, go ahead, Morgan. Wait, Lovey, wait.
What? What?
Whatever way does that be?
Excuse me, everyone. This is Morgan and Gary Olson.
Hi, Morgan.
From Channel 19, Dubuque Community School, and you are part of Manners Make Magic and Kids in the Kitchen.
Oh, that's great!
Thank you.
Are we the donut or are we the do?
Yeah, so you better behave.
What not to do with manners?
It's too late, Gary.
It's too late. Then we'll
Yeah, when I heard Mike was coming, I thought,
what are we doing?
we're going to have to do a lot of editing.
Your reputation.
Well, at least you understand that.
Yes, I do.
speak
I'm
Swiss.
fully aware of it. I've known him for a long time.
Morgan was here
And this
this
is
morning
Morgan.
with one of the other kids, two of the other kids, and we did the setting of the table and we went through all the courses with the kids. And then Gary thought it would be kind of fun to actually see and be able to show the kids. Now tonight it's actually happening, and Morgan's going to come in at the beginning of each of the entrees and kind of help serve them. And then by the time we get to the entree, you guys will be on your own.
And Morgan, how old are you, dear?
Or 12.
Oops, you just had a birthday.
Where you go to school?
Roosevelt.
Oh, good.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Good
Okay.
for you. The
Great.
table looks beautiful.
You're coming through. Go ahead.
Yes, I can feel the heat. So don't
I'll try some.
He's gonna try some. He's gonna try some. We all try it. This is the kitchen crew.
You.
We aren't fancy. We're not fancy in the kitchen when we taste our own food.
This is even better than Red Lobster.
Carrie did it.
That's right. And then once I put the soup in them, you can put a little parsley on top as a garnish and put the lid back on, and then they'll be ready to go into the other room. Okay? Okay.
How did everybody like the fish course?
It was
Outstanding.
Oh my
Very
gosh.
good.
It was
Unbelievable.
fabulous.
Delicious.
Did you make it?
No.
Soup is coming out. Hot, hot, hot.
But you also don't
Don't carry
want.
things by lid.
Very hot.
Okay, it doesn't have a lid.
It had a lid. I took the lid off.
Okay.
Let me get the... Okay, Morgan, there's some parsley in there.
Alright.
And you're just going to put a few sprinkles once I put this into the cups.
Alright.
Okay, we don't want to get it dripping all over.
Yeah, that would not.
Wipe it up. There.
The white part? Oh, the brown part in the back.
What brown part?
And this one went to one of these. And
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna put a little more parsley in there.
Looks okay.
Okay, well, we've just served the soup course, which means next is the salad. After that is the sorbet. Then comes the main course. And then the dessert, followed by the cheese.
What we're doing is cubing some pears, and we're keeping them a nice size like this so we can put them in the salad. And basically what I'm doing is making sure I'm cutting down the side, keeping away from the heart, and then we'll cube those. And oh, those are so good on the. You can just feel how good those are going to be.
Slaving away in the kitchen.
So if you want to take and sprinkle, again, just kind of take, like, you know,
So
like this.
about the same as much.
Just a sprinkling, because this is pretty powerful cheese. But just a nice little sprinkling. Yeah, that looks good. This.
Of course, I don't know.
Well, there's a king of English cheese. What about the queen?
There is only one Queen of England, and I don't think any cheese could compare with her. Now we're going to do the same thing with the pears.
Okay. So
Again, you know, your hands are your best measurement. As long as you wash your hands and they're clean, they're the best utensil in the kitchen. And if you didn't have pears, another really good accompaniment to the salad is apples. They work very nicely with the cheese and the nuts too.
I never thought of cheese and fruits mixing.
They mix very nicely together. And yet it's a little different. That might be something that some of the people that are dining here tonight haven't had before, so we're giving them a new dining experience.
Well, now that you mention it, it sure does sound good.
Well, you know, the kitchen staff gets to try everything, so you'll get a chance to try it. Okay.
Well, it looks like our salads are complete.
Well, I simply need to put some olive oil, which we always put on all of our salads, a nice light extra virgin olive oil. Just like that. See, this isn't so hard when you have all your plates lined up. I've cut all my vegetables in advance. I cleaned my lettuce this afternoon and put it in a bag so it would be nice and clean and crisp tonight. If you wait until the last minute and try to do everything, you're out here hurrying and worrying and you're not getting things done very well, and it just doesn't go very smoothly. So the main thing in the kitchen is to be organized. This is balsamic vinegar.
Okay.
This is kind of a thick, this is not a real tart one. This is kind of a sweet balsamic vinegar.
Okay.
It's so sweet, it doesn't want to come out of the bottle. I'll have to coax it out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my finger over it so it doesn't come out so fast that I can't control it.
Okay.
See how thick that looks?
Yeah.
So it's
It
got
looks
lots.
like chocolate syrup.
Yeah, it does look like chocolate syrup, and that's how you can tell a more mellow and a better balsamic vinegar. Otherwise, they can be real sour and really tart, which is fine on some recipes, but since I'm putting it with fruit, I want to have the balsamic be kind of sweet.
Balsamic vinegar. Isn't that like the stuff they used way back when?
Well, some balsamic vinegars, the really best ones, can be as much as 100 years old. And there's really only one city in Italy that makes the real balsamic vinegar, and it's a city called Modena. And that's where the really good, very fine balsamic vinegars come from. And they do age them just like you would age a fine wine in oak casks. And they're very, very expensive. And a lot of time restaurants carry different qualities of balsamics. Now tonight we need a good quality because the flavor is going to be right up front on the salad. If you're using a balsamic in a mixed up maybe dressing or in a recipe, you don't have to be as fussy about the quality of the balsamic. Now I'm just putting a little bit of salt and a little coarsely ground pepper on top, and the salads are going to be ready to go. See what this is? We didn't toss a salad tonight. What we did was we built a salad. By building, I mean we started by laying down the first ingredient, the lettuce. Then we've added on top of the lettuce all the different ingredients that we wanted. So this is building a salad.
In your opinion, do you think tossing a salad or building the salad is better?
Well, it just depends on the salad. This particular salad, if I tossed it, the balsamic vinegar would make the whole salad look kind of dirty. And so then it wouldn't appeal to the eye, but it would still taste okay. But if I was doing a vinaigrette that had no color, I could toss it and coat the leaves very nicely and it would be fine. So it just depends on the kind of salad that you're making, if you need to toss it or you build it.
So tell me again, how are we going to use the orange?
Okay, these little cups are just going to hold just a taste of a real tart lemon sorbet. So instead of just putting a little naked scoop of sorbet in the bottom of this dish, and it wouldn't look very appealing, I thought maybe we would take an orange slice, and I sliced it, and I just kind of curve it to make like a little cone, and I set it down in there. See, now that adds color, and it'll lift the sorbet up, and it'll look like a full dish, but we don't want to give people a full dish because it's not a dessert. It's just meant to clean their palate, to refresh their mouth. So that's what we're going to do that. We'll put the sorbet in, and then we're going to garnish it with a mint. So you can put the oranges in the rest of the cups.
Mint. Yummy.
I can
Sorbet is like ice cream. So how do you know when to put it in the dish?
Well, we're going to wait till all the salad plates come out. We're going to let people have a few sips of water and kind of wait in anticipation of what we're bringing. And then we'll get the sorbet out. We'll immediately put it into the cups, put a little mint leaf on it, and take it directly in so that it doesn't melt. And then you can come behind me if you want to step over here and very gently, stick a mint leaf so that it's coming out and looking kind of pretty.
Like that?
Yeah, remember we feed the eyes before we feed the stomachs around here.
Yep. And by the way, it's catching on.
So you know the people we're serving tonight, they bought the dinner to come to my house. That's why I'm not in there joining them as a guest. This was a dinner that got auctioned off at an auction, and one of the people in there bought it, and because we were trying to raise money for the Findlay Hospital Foundation, because they built that new diabetic center, and this was one way when they had the B.B. King concert. Then several of us said, oh, well, we'll donate a dinner, and then people bought them, and now tonight I'm having the people that bought my dinner, and that's how Findlay Hospital raised some extra money that night at the concert.
Well, that's really cool that people can have fun and help their community as well.
That's right. The whole thing, it's a win-win situation. Plus, the diabetic center gains something in it. we kind of make some new friends, and I've met you doing this, and it's been fun working with you. And hopefully you're learning a little bit about doing some entertaining. And you know, we work in the kitchen and we have fun, but it is work too. But there's nobody says you can't have fun while you work. I'm not really sure how they work, but they're the latest technology in bakeware. And the nice thing about them is if I'm picking up something that's hot and it's greasy, I can just wipe these off. They don't, the heat doesn't come through, and they don't get stained, and you don't have to be washing them all the time. You just wash them with soap and water when you're doing your dishes, and they're ready to go back in the drawer. But I've just found these, and I love them. These are our mushroom turnovers, and a little of the mushroom sauce has kind of seeped out during the baking, but I don't think it's going to affect the flavor in the least. They're nice and hot, and there's still lots of nice juicy mushroom gravy inside. Very gently now, because we don't want to knock the lid off. We have to get, here, I'll help you. You know what we're going to do? We're going to kind of hold on to the top of it like that, and then just very gently set it on the plate. They are nice and hot. That's right. That's it. Okay. Wait, now let's get a plate. Okay. Okay. Gently when you set it down, because these are soft. Okay. Just there you go.
Make your plate look nice all the time. Don't just throw the food on it. You know what I'm going to have you do? I'm going to have you take some of this sauce.
That would look pretty. Very good.
This concludes our segment of Manners Make Magic and Kids in the Kitchen. Thanks for joining us.
Don't!